Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I hope your weekend is ready to get off to a wonderful start. I'm out at basketball most of today, so I thought I would just jump on and do this little live first thing this morning. And I wanted to build on what we've already been talking about in the group, which is nice little techniques that you can have in your back pocket to use as and when life throws you a situation where you need a little something, a secret weapon, a special tool. And some of the videos that I've put in the group so far have been about how to do things like answer tricky questions, handle silences, sharing with you my view that conversations and communication can happen in bite-sized chunks and not to rush in and interrogate people. Instead, find your way to learn about them and how they feel through the use of some clever questions and creating the right environments. And this morning I want to build on those things with you to talk about 3 different ways that I have found that are really useful when you want to get your kids to open up to you. Now, we've talked before about building a connection with someone and creating a space where someone feels comfortable to share something that might make them feel a little bit vulnerable. And in the How to Handle Awkward Silences video, I talked about when it comes to kids, the gold being at your ability to handle the silence in your conversation with them, to see what it is that they want to talk to you about after the pause. Because they'll tell you the easy stuff first, and then the stuff that they feel a little bit nervous about, they'll mention after that awkward silence. And building on that, sometimes in that video, I said to you, sometimes the kids, they'll take that silence, weigh it up, decide that it's too risky to share that information with you, or to tell you that bit of news, or to admit to something, whatever it is that they are carrying as baggage. Sometimes they don't have the courage to talk to you about it in the moment. And my advice in that video was let it go. Let them know that there was an opportunity, that you held a space for them if they had wanted to speak. And then next time you're in conversation, they might feel that that risk of sharing with you is less. But sometimes you sense that there's something going on in their world, or you know the bare bones of a situation they're facing, and you would love to know more about it. But sometimes if you just, sit them down, look them in the eye and stare at them and ask them 100 questions, they don't seem to open up. So there are 3 things that I have learned to do which have delivered a great result for me in the past. I don't know why, because I'm not a psychologist. There's probably an explanation for the parts of the brain that you use when you do these activities that I'm going to talk to you about that means that you let your guard down more. I don't know. I haven't got an ology in sociology or psychology. I'm just a mum. And therefore I am desperate to create the right environment for my kids to feel like when there is something big happening in their life, they will talk to me about it. And what I've learned is, if I want to be that person that they come to when they are bigger and grown up and something big is happening in their life, I have to create and find ways to create a space for them now when they're small to tell me the small stuff. It feels like small stuff to me, but actually what I've realised is to them, it's all big stuff. The tiniest of thing that worries them about, not being chosen for some PE club, to, their best friend not wanting to play with them on any given day. That stuff feels small to us, but it's big in their lives. And so I've done what I can to create environments to help my kids open up to me and learn that I am not going to judge what I hear, and I am going to be able to do the tricky stuff, which is to manage my reaction. Because sometimes, and let me know in the comments below if you were this kid, or you know that you might be raising this kid, who actually you're more worried about what your parents would do if you told them something than you are about the thing that's worrying you. I know that, I hear it from clients all the time. They'll say to me, I wish I'd told my parents, but I knew my dad, if he found out what had happened, he'd go round there and he would have a fight and he'd end up in prison. And that's why I never told my parents that this was happening, because those kids are more worried about our reactions as parents and what we'll do. And so they struggle and they suffer in silence. If, however, you want to create the mood and the understanding that they can tell you stuff and you're not going to judge what you hear in the instant, and you're not always going to try and fix it for them and provide a solution. You're going to listen and you're going to understand and you're going to manage your reaction and give them an opportunity to work out what they want to do about it next, sometimes with your help and sometimes without your help. Now, I know that in all of my videos, I talk about eye contact's really important. Try where you can to maintain eye contact. It builds rapport and it strengthens relationships, and you can tell what else is happening because you can read someone's face at the same time as you're listening to the words. But the 3 activities that I'm going to mention to you now require you actually to use the magic of not having eye contact. And those 3 things that sometimes work, they work for me, they might work for you, is to do activities with your kids that mean you are doing the same thing, but you are not looking at each other while you're doing it. This will sound random. So my 3 favourites are jigsaw puzzles, the washing and drying up, and walking. So really simple everyday things. Now, I don't know what it is about those 3 things, what they've got in common, what is similar about them that means I can have some really good conversations with my kids that I couldn't have otherwise. All I know is that they work for me, and therefore I'm offering them to you in case they work in your house as well. But whenever I get a jigsaw puzzle out, and it's normally my daughter, my son's not any patience for that sort of stuff, but he used to when he was littler. But we put the jigsaw puzzle out on the table, and other than the fact that she will always stash the last piece in her hand and we'll be merrily finishing the puzzle off, and just when I think we've lost a bit, suddenly miraculously the last piece will appear in her palm and she gets to officially finish the puzzle. But in the doing of the puzzle, I don't know whether it's the fact that we are both sort of engaging part of our brain in looking for the different pieces of the puzzle, or the fact that we are looking at a picture and distracted. But in those moments, if I can ask a good question, an open question, my kids are more likely to talk to me about something because I'm not looking at them. I don't know whether they almost imagine they're kind of not really saying it out loud, they're kind of saying it to themselves, I don't know. But I get the opportunity to say things to them like, oh, so, you know, how are things between you and Ava now? Or, you know, did your maths teacher say anything else about that homework? Or, you know, have you made up with X friend or Y friend? And normally I might just get a, yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's fine, if I'm looking in the eye. But when we're doing a puzzle together, I will get details. And what I've learned to do is some of the techniques I've shared in the other videos, which is stay still. Because you remember I said when you want people to open up and you're giving them the time to think about what they want to say, the less you can distract them with your voice and your body movements, the better. So when you're doing a puzzle, it's easy because you can just be looking for that next bit, and they don't realise that you're actually managing your physical presence so as not to distract their thinking. But also, I think the lack of eye contact when you're doing a puzzle, it allows you to kind of manage your face. Because sometimes I've been in conversations where I have heard things that I wish I hadn't. Heard moments where they've obviously been sad or upset or worried, and I didn't know at the time. And therefore, I have had to, if I was looking at them, they'd see it in my face. They would see my shock or my sadness. They might even see my eyes filling up with tears. Because you can talk to them about all sorts of things, grief, loss, worry, death, all sorts of things in those moments. And because you're not making eye contact with them, they feel comfortable to open up a little bit, and you get a split second just to manage your emotional response, because your emotional response is not their problem. The minute you make them feel something else because of your reaction, you layer on an extra emotion that they could do without, either guilt, disappointment, shame, or they might feel cross at themselves for making you feel upset. So because they can't see your face when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, or when you're walking along, you tend to be looking at where you're going, or even when you're doing the dishes. That, for me, I think it's just because you're side by side, you can't look at each other all the time that you're doing it, otherwise you're not going to be doing a good job. It's the lack of eye contact that in this scenario works in your favour. And what that does, it just gives you a moment to still yourself before you respond. But also, because it's nice and slow pace, morning Donna, because these activities, either walking, so I know Donna, you're out walking a lot with Pollyanna, when you're walking, when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, when you're washing and drying up, it's not a constant conversation. So in that moment, you can be quiet without it looking or feeling awkward. And sometimes it just allows you, that space to be quiet, allows you to think of a question that you could ask that keeps the conversation going. And so sometimes, you know, we're out and I'll be walking and we'll be talking about something and I'm asking them about something I want to know about. Morning poker face, love it. But also sometimes they will bring up something that they're worried about, and they'll start a conversation. And I get to ask them open questions. And there's two approaches that I take that might be of use to you to consider. One is questions that I use to learn more. And the second type of thing I do is I use my opportunities to reply to just recognise that I understand how they feel. Not that I fix it. There's no solution given. Because again, sometimes they don't want that. They just want to talk it through. And the older they get, the more of that I think they seem to want. But sometimes I can say to them, wow, so, you know, how did that make you feel? Or, that sounds tough. What happened next? Or, what are you going to do the next time you see her? Or, okay, so faced with that situation again, what do you think you might do differently? They're all great questions that help you learn more. But sometimes your kids just want to hear you say, wow, that must have been tough. Or, I felt like that before. It's not very nice, is it? There's no and or but or however that comes next. And certainly I try and avoid making statements that will feel like a judgment. Even if I think what they're describing sounds silly. Of course they're not uncaring. Of course they weren't selfish. The last thing in the world that they want me to say is, oh, don't be silly. You know, she doesn't really think that about you. Don't be silly. Or, oh, well, I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, you've probably, as a parent, know that as a child you've been on the receiving end. I know I had countless conversations, or wanted to have conversations with my parents about worrying about exams that I had at school, whether they were GCSEs or A-levels, and I used to get the same response, which is, oh, don't be silly, you'll be great, you'll do just fine. Oh, don't worry, you're silly to worry about it, you've got nothing to worry about. You'll be great, you'll be fine. The amount of pressure that used to make me feel. Like I just wanted someone to say, yeah, it's horrible when you're nervous, even if you feel quite confident in the subject. But you know what? Try not to worry about it. Just go in and do your best. That's all I really wanted to hear. Someone that could say, God, it's horrible to feel like that, isn't it? I get it. I remember feeling like that. Don't compare your story to mine. Just let me sit in my story and give me permission to acknowledge that it feels okay. Don't try and fix it, and don't tell me I'm silly to feel it, because I'm being really brave and sharing my anxiety, my worry with you. And our kids kind of want the same. They want us to recognise and say, oh, it doesn't feel nice, does it, when someone speaks to you like that? Or, oh, it's horrible when you inadvertently make someone feel upset, isn't it? I remember that feeling. What do you think you might do about it? You know, you've got so much opportunity to remind them that you are so much more than just the disciplinarian in their life. You were a kid once. You remember what it feels like to worry about the small stuff. To us, it's small stuff. To them, it's big stuff. And these scenarios that you can use and put yourself in with them, where actually you're not making eye contact, suddenly just create a closeness. And quite often I will end, when I feel like a discussion is at the end, and they might not want to talk about it anymore, I will be the one that changes the subject. And it's a nice little, because I'm in for the long haul. Communication is something you learn and get good at over time. Relationships are built over time. They are built in tiny little bite-sized chunks and moments of shared experience. And so even if you bring a conversation to an end and you change the subject and you lighten the mood and you make a joke, you talk about something that makes you both happy, they will never forget that in that moment you held a space for them and that it was safe for them to talk to you. And they will ramp up the importance and the risk factor of the things. They're testing you. You've done it. You've tested those boundaries to see what you could get away with and where the boundary line was. They'll do exactly the same. And when it comes to trust, that you're playing a long game. And all I can say is adding a few of these scenarios to your armory, so that whenever you want to just check in on them and see how they're feeling, remember that sometimes it's not about the sitting down and looking them in the eye and asking a direct question. Something that distracts you both but is a shared experience, like a jigsaw puzzle, like walking, like doing the dishes. Anything that you're doing together without looking at each other can be a nice way to find out more. So I'd love to know your thoughts below. And Donna, I can see you've put that you can really resonate with this. Actually, don't tell them, but it works on adults too, because children are just small adults. So it does make me laugh, because a lot of what I teach is exactly the same skill that I teach a child to communicate as I teach an adult, because it is the same skill. We just don't learn them young enough. So if you want to help an adult open up to you, or you want to broach a tricky subject and it can feel less intrusive, do it when you can't look them in the eye. But always do it face to face, because not being able to look them in the eye, so you're texting them instead. No, never do that. Messaging is a whole different video. We need to talk about that separately. But I'm just talking about experiences where you could, if you wanted to, look at them and you'll get the facial expression, the body language signals, so that if you need to paint the whole picture, you can. That's my top tip for Saturday morning. I'm looking forward to a weekend of sporting-based activities. Well, I look at them, I don't actually do them. I hope that you've got something lush planned. And next week, alongside some extra little videos I'll be popping in, I have got another Comms Club hot seat with my friend Tanya, and we are going to be talking about how to talk about money. Now there's a topic. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I will be back soon. Okay, let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. Have a great Saturday. Bye for now.